What's the dumbest thing you ever cried over? When my lost luggage was returned to me, had a connecting flight from Amsterdam to Rome, but my luggage never made it on the plane in time. Spent 3 days wearing the same clothes around Rome, cried and gave my suitcase a hug when it was delivered. I've definitely been there. One time I was having a really rough day and then I was walking by a lake when saw a mama duck with only one baby duck and realized all her other babies had died. I don't even like ducks, or strangers' babies. It was a weird day. Hey, I know this is probably too late, but ducks kind of share parenting responsibilities. It's likely that the other babies were elsewhere, with different parents from the same flock. I tend to get emotionally attached to objects for some reason. Not really sure why, but one time I cried for a whole hour over losing my favorite pencil. I managed to find it later in my bag and cried again over how happy I was. I dropped a huge bottle of ketchup in the kitchen. The thing exploded everywhere. At the time I had awful flu. I was on my hands and knees cleaning up what looked like a murder scene. Kept finding ketchup for weeks. That does sound upsetting. I was having a terrible morning, with everything going wrong and my job was driving me crazy. So during lunchtime I decided to get a McDonald's sundae and, since it was a bad day and I wanted to get better, I paid to get extra chocolate syrup. I waited, received the sundae and looked for a bench to sit and eat it. When I sat, I realized they forgot to put my extra syrup. I was already so pissed off at everything that, instead of going back and asking for the syrup, I just started crying like crazy while eating the not as expected sundae. Once when I really had to study for midterms, my roommates went to get McDonald's. They asked if I wanted to go but I really couldn't lose study time. Once they left I cried because I really wanted a cheeseburger. I lost all of my money on Neopets due to a random event. I didn't realize that this is what had happened, of course. I went onto the forums and said I had been hacked because clearly this is the only explanation I could think of, being the early 14 that I was. I was then called a liar and received reply upon reply about how you couldn't get hacked on Neopets and that I needed to stop making up stories. I fell out of the chair, crawled to the stairs, and sobbed down to my grandmother, who went into a full-on panic. She later told me she thought someone had died and I had somehow been the first to find out. Frick that stupid sloth character for stealing my money, and frick that stupid avatar I got for the event. It wasn't even a pretty avatar. To be fair, Neopets was a pretty big deal. I remember investing a truly ridiculous amount of time into saving up money and buying paintbrushes. My grandma had a Fisher-Price farm that I played with when I was growing up. I loved that thing so much. I never wanted to ask that she will it to me because I don't want to bring up her death to either of us. Last month, she painted it black for Halloween because nobody played with it. I was sobbing in my bathroom at college. I was so hungry and tired and grumpy when I opened the takeout bag and the Thai place had forgotten the noodles for my dish. Nothing silly about that. I would be bawling. I cried over spilled milk as a teenager. I was pouring milk for my cereal on a school day. It was so early and I was so tired that I poured out half the gallon before I realized that my bowl had overflowed out onto the table and floor. My dad had just switched jobs a week before and took a massive pay cut, so my parents were making it very aware to us that we needed to do everything we could to cut costs. I just lost it and started bawling while trying to mop it up. I was sobbing. They work so hard for the money to buy this milk. On the way to school I realized that I literally cried over spilled milk and had a laugh. Instead of dumping the almost full, expired, by about a week, milk down the drain, I dumped the brand new half gallon down the sink. Once I realized my mistake, I just stood at the sink in shock for a bit, then broke down. Good to know I'm not the only one crying over spilled milk. I was working a horrible job that was crushing my soul. 12-hour days, 7 days a week at a white shoe law firm. One of the partners was a giant butt and had picked me as a punching bag. Went on for months and I was emotionally drained to the point of snapping. On this day, he basically required me to put together a PowerPoint justifying my existence and pretty much made clear that he wanted me gone. I left work and decided I needed several drinks. I realized I had lost my wallet. I had $5 in my pocket and wouldn't have any other cash until the next day. I bought a cheap pint of vodka. As I walked up to my building, the bag broke and bottle smashed on the ground. Grown man, bawling on a bench, over a $5 bottle of vodka. That's not ridiculous at all, besides that guy being that much of an butt, that is ridiculous. That's freaking depressing, man. At least you're out of that heck hole now. My first morning of college, I went to shower and the water was freezing and not warming up, so I cried. Because I missed the hot showers at home and thought they would be like this all year. But then, the water warmed up, so I sobbed some more because I was so thankful. I mean, cold showers are just the worst, so I get it. I was in PetSmart looking at chinchillas and the pamphlet mentioned these small marble slabs you can put in your freezer to help the chinchilla cool down. They called them chinchillas and I started bawling. Man, other people are commenting about things they cried about that weren't really big deals, but this is full on remembered swans can be gay crying. I was pregnant and husband joked that he was going to eat all the egg rolls we were about to order. I even knew he was joking, but full on baby sobbed in the waiting area at Sunny's. When I was 6 or 7, I grew an attachment to a watermelon. My dad bought it at a farmer's stand, and for some reason I just thought it was too amazing to be eaten. I decided it should be a new family pet, even though my young logical brain knew it was ridiculous. Some part of me just latched onto the idea of a pet watermelon. A week or so later my brother chopped it in half with a machete, and I bawled for about 2 hours. I think it's safe to say that was the end of my childhood. For me it was a cantaloupe. I honestly thought I was the only one who had ever befriended a melon. I just couldn't get my duvet into my duvet cover and I cried like a baby, then realized I was probably just hormonal. Although it's something I still struggle with to this day. Duvet covers are hard for me. 1. Lay the duvet out flat. 2. Turn the cover inside out. 3. Get in the cover, like a duvet ghost. 4. Grab the corners of the cover from the inside. 5. Still holding the corners, grab the corresponding corners of the duvet. 6. Shake it off onto the duvet. Job done. Had a rough night. Fought with the girlfriend. I just wanted a burger and a Coke. I dropped the Coke when I got out of my car just in front of my front door. I have definitely cried over dropping a Coke, lol. I went to a Vietnamese restaurant out of town because I'd been dreaming of good pho for weeks, and there was a kid sitting a couple tables away from me who just got his bowl of pho and promptly spilled it all over himself and the floor. I hadn't gotten my food yet and I just started bawling out of nowhere because I was so sad to see it wasted when I wanted some so bad. OMG, this is my favorite. When I realized that my cat would not live forever and would one day die, when he was still perfectly healthy, I cried and cried. Then he actually died years later and it was brutal. He was 17. My cats are 1 and 2 years old and I full on ugly sobbed into a pillow because I had the same realization. I still have so long with them and yet my hormones decided now is the time to cry about it. The first Christmas without my grandma. She died a week before. I went to the butcher to pick up our beef tenderloin for Christmas dinner. I had placed an order for 4 instead of 5 people. He brought me out a full tenderloin, $270 worth of meat for some other family. I starting sobbing at the butcher. That isn't my meat. It was awful and hilarious. Poor guy didn't know what happened. This isn't dumb and I am sorry for your loss, but I cannot stop giggling at that poor butcher who had no idea why you'd sob that he brought you the wrong order. I hate killing mice. My husband hates mice, so we compromised that we'd get live traps for the mice in our house, and I'm take them out to the woods and let them loose when we caught them. So, caught a mouse one day, took it to the woods and let it loose, got back in my car to leave, and the dang stupid mouse ran right out in front of my tire and I ran him over. I sobbed for hours, feeling totally ridiculous the whole dang time. Oh, I had forgotten. But your story reminded me. I was driving to work, and a squirrel did what squirrels do and ran in front of my car. I ran it over. What I shouldn't have done is looked in my rear view mirror. I can still picture him flopping around, probably with a broken back. I couldn't go that same way for weeks. After my appendix surgery, I was on a beautiful cocktail of painkillers and apparently very loopy. My mom tried to make me feel better by bringing me one of those amazing chocolate and cake confections that fancy bakers make to show off. Unfortunately, the treat was shaped like an absolutely adorable snowman and I started sobbing at the idea of consuming something so cute. My mom thought this was hilarious and started filming me, but then I cried so hard I tore my stitches and had to go back in to get fixed up. I'm so grateful I'm never going to have appendicitis again. You know how most kids sleep with a stuffed animal or pillow? I slept with a balled up bedsheet. I don't know what it was about that sheet, but I loved it and it provided a lot of comfort. When I was around 7ish, we took a family vacation to Colorado. Instead of driving straight through, we spent a night in a hotel. I woke up that morning in the hotel and had lost my sheet. We were packing up to continue the drive and for the life of me I could not find it. I cried for like 2 days over my lost sheet. TLDR. I cried over a lost bedsheet. AWW, that makes me so sad. I still sleep with my baby blanket sometimes and almost always at least a stuffed animal LOL. When we lost power while I was playing the organ for a funeral, the organ blower quit right in the middle of a climactic moment in a piece the widow had requested. She started to cry and it caused me to do the same. I felt so sorry for her. Oh, this one isn't silly, it's actually really sad. I was already feeling pretty fragile anyways, yay teenage depression, and was walking to the shop or something in the middle of winter when there was snow on the ground. My boot must have had a tiny pinprick sized hole and snow slush water seeped in making my sock wet. I got home and my mum asked me what was up and I just started bawling because my sock was wet. Reasonable. Frick wet socks. One time I was PMsing real bad and a brick wall made me cry. I was trying to focus on something neutral in an attempt to reach emotional stability so I stared at a brick wall and it had the opposite of its intended effect. That brick wall freaking wrecked me. I feel yeah. Once when I was PMSY and sleep deprived I cried because the trees in my backyard were too green. You know that Amazon commercial where the baby is afraid of the dog but likes a toy lion so the dad gets the dog a lion mane and the baby pets the dog? Every freaking time. Got a lump in my throat just typing this. I cried at that Budweiser Super Bowl ad a few years back with the horse trainer who goes to see the grown Clydesdales on parade and then one of them remembers him. There's more to it than that but I forgot the details and I don't wanna go watch it and cry again. I was around 8 or 9. I ate a third of a banana and thought I just killed this thing for no reason. I was crying as if someone died. I was weeping asking the banana to forgive me. Glad my parents didn't catch me or else I would have kept hearing about it. No clue what was wrong with me, haha. When I was a kid I remember having a full-on, screaming, hyperventilating tantrum because my mum had given me a new green banana, and I wanted an older, yellow and brown spotted banana. Bananas do weird things to people. I had a day off and some extra magic mushrooms so I parked my car at a park and ate them, listened to some music and watched the trees in my car for a while. I forgot I had taken them when I started watching an old lady playing with her dog. It was really cute and they were having fun, and I was having fun watching them. Suddenly it dawned on me that either the dog or the woman would be dead at some point in the future, and they wouldn't have each other forever. The existential realities of death and life swarmed me while I was watching the riveting game of fetch unfold. I cried like a bee for like a full hour, alone and tripping balls. One time I ordered fried chicken and I thought I was ordering boneless chicken strips. I was served a fully boned chicken. I started crying but still ate it. I just pictured a sobbing person gnawing chicken off the bone, and it's the most haunting image I've ever had. When I was 12 or 13, I saw Jurassic Park, the infamous Futurama episode where Fry's dog dies. The final scene brought out the waterworks in me, and soon I found myself audibly sobbing to a Matt Groening show. Unbeknownst to me, my mother had snuck into my room and was watching me cry. She broke the silence by asking me what was wrong, but I was so embarrassed by crying over an animated comedy series that I immediately thought up a lie. I told my mom that her recent divorce, she and my stepfather had broken up 6 months before, was really taking a toll on me. She found me a therapist and insisted that I go talk to them. It cost her $300 worth of sessions with a shrink before I could admit that my emotions weren't fueled by my now broken family, but instead by a cartoon dog. That episode had me bawling too, especially at the end when Fry assumes the dog would have forgotten and moved on. And during the credits it shows that the dog waited for him the whole time. Great, now I'm tearing up again. My freshman year of college I was super depressed with huge mood swings and I didn't understand why. I forced myself to go to the big rivalry basketball game in an effort to be more social. My school won in what was kind of an upset, and the crowd exploded with cheers and people stormed the court. I just started bawling. Everyone around me was happy and cheering and I was crying and I had no idea why because I wasn't even sad or anything. I walked back to my dorm. Still bawling, what is wrong with me, why am I crying, when I realized there might be a link to the new birth control I had been taking. Of course my emotions were out of whack. I was taking estrogen pills. I stopped taking them and 2 weeks later I was back to normal. So the dumbest reason I ever had a crying meltdown was because my school won a basketball game. Woo man, I remember being on estrogen birth control pills and it was a complete mess. One night I could not stop crying because the whales at SeaWorld needed my help and there I was being useless in the middle of the Midwest and no actual connection to any whale. My bus didn't show up and I was out late as I had met a friend to see a show after work. My bus showing up would add half an hour into my 45-minute commute and I couldn't stop crying. I just silently sobbed waiting for a different bus and cried on the bus. I just wanted to sleep. I took the bus for 3 years. This is a valid reason to cry. Videos of dogs reuniting with their owners after a long time. And once I almost put my spoon into the microwave to heat it in order to get ice cream out of the carton easier. I felt really dumb. So dumb. I sobbed. I was 19 and on my first date with a girl and we watched Terminator 2 at her house. I cried when the thumb went up. She woke up to me sniffling about it. It's not really dumb but I felt kinda silly. Dale Jr. won at Talladega a couple years ago. He hadn't won there in 10 years. I was so happy that he won and I wanted to call my dad because we were both Earnhardt fans. My dad's been gone for a few years. So I went from happiness to excitement to sadness after getting the impulse to call my dead father. I cried for a few minutes. Honestly, not a stupid thing to cry over. Sorry about your dad. Also, that was a crazy race. When I was pregnant, crying at my husband because he was irritating me and making me furious without actually doing anything wrong. Then crying because he gave me a hug and said he loved me even if I was annoyed with him. You also cried when Thor couldn't pick up his hammer. My hot dog bun broke in half when I wanted to put the sausage in it. I was looking forward to that perfect hot dog all day and when the bun broke I started crying out of disappointment. I was pregnant AMD starting talking to someone who was college age kid. I started thinking my kids will do that one day 20 years in the future and started to cry. Or, this one made me chuckle a little because just the other day I was consoling my sobbing pregnant best friend because she started thinking about her kid starting to drive when he is a teenager. No amount of he hasn't even been born yet from her husband could soothe her, so he had to call in the special lady hormone support team. My auntie put lots of effort one day into preparing for a barbecue. I mean like spend the whole day preparing for it and going and buying lots of stuff. She the angel type of person, I mean she would do anything for anyone. She invited lots of people but I knew they wouldn't come. I ended up leaving her house and going home and crying for like half an hour because it upset me so much how good she was and how people cared so little. I don't know if all the stuff going on in my life at the time made me upset or not, but it always stuck with me for some reason. This makes me feel really sad too. She put time and effort into it and was probably really excited. I don't blame you at all. I don't even know her and this makes me feel sad. When I was pregnant with my first, I cried watching Practical Magic. It's that stupid movie with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock about witches. I was sobbing and shouting, this is ridiculous. I shouldn't be crying. It's just so sad. I love that movie. I cry every time I watch it. In 2nd grade my mom found me crying in my bed, completely inconsolable. When asked what was wrong, I said, through violent tears, people are dying in Africa because cheetahs are eating them, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. I think that was me first realizing that the world had a lot of issues that couldn't easily be solved. But it's pretty funny looking back on it. If I was your mom I would have probably peed myself laughing. After I got my wisdom teeth out, all I wanted to eat was a taquito. Once I found out I wasn't allowed to eat crunchy food, I sobbed for a good 10 minutes. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I had just moved to the States and had no friends. So I took to catching insects, frogs, and other small critters, naming them, and pretending like they were my Pokemon friends. One time I caught this big beautiful mammoth bear caterpillar and built a beautiful habitat for it with flowers, plenty of grass, a little house, anything it could need. I was all set to groom and evolve him to the big beautiful butterfree I knew he would evolve into. But before I put him into his habitat, I lost him. I walked around trying to look for him, and then I hear this loud crunch squish. Yeep. I had stepped on him. Our friendship, dreams and plans all gone, destroyed by me in an instant. I still remember the guilt and utter dismay I felt after realizing what I had done. I cried and was sad for a couple days after. Then I caught a frog named John a couple days later and accidentally killed him too. This is sad but at the same time so freaking pure. One time I cried because rhinos are adorable and I had no idea. Recently it has been discovered that they congregate at night and they literally frolic and cuddle like they're all stuck on baby elephant mode. I was not crying like the I'm not crying thing you do when you're watching a sad movie with someone and don't want anyone to notice. I was hysterical. I woke my wife up with these sobs. She walked into the living room thinking I was having another PTSD episode, and I made her watch rhinos frolic while I sobbed and tried to explain why I was so overwhelmed. She just looked at me like a disappointed parent looks at an exhausting child and walked back to bed. I think it was the appropriate response. That time of the month, of course, wanted spaghetti, didn't have spaghetti noodles. Collapsed on the floor and continued to sob so loudly and dramatically you would think I just watched my own mother die. Nope, I just wanted some pasta. I mean, I'm a dude from an Italian family and it brings me to tears when I don't have spaghetti and some sauce in the pantry, so I feel your pain. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.